Welcome to the Intuitive Eating Mama podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer D'Amato. I am an intuitive eating counselor and I'm also a mom to four. This podcast is not just for mamas, it's for all women who are ready to ditch diets, ditch the scale and food guilt forever, and instead invite peace with food, increase their body trust, and confidence in all of her choices. I believe this show is going to shed some light on sneaky ways diet culture has infiltrated your thoughts, your family, and your well-being. No matter the episode, I want you to walk away feeling informed, inspired, and encouraged. So whether you're taking a walk, washing the dishes, or carting kids around, let's dive into the latest episode on the Intuitive Eating Mama podcast. A couple weeks ago, I wrapped up the Intuitive Health Reboot with the spring group, and I have really just been so reflective of how amazing those women are and what they've done for themselves, for their families. Like, it gets me so excited. And I'll tell you, the Intuitive Health Reboot will open again for the fall. But for now, I thought it would be really helpful to share some episodes that I shared with them in the group. So things were coming up in coaching. They were, bringing things that they were going through. And one of my clients was like, "Hey, do you have a podcast episode on that?" As a matter of fact, I do. So I wanted to take like a mini break from the podcast, but not like leave you. I never want to leave you. So I thought it would be fun to do some rewind episodes. This one right here could not be better timed. I realize as I'm putting this together that it's coming out on the 4th of July. If you're here in the US, it's usually a holiday filled with being around people like friends, family, barbecues, all of that. One of the questions in Intuitive Health Reboot, the spring group, was like, how do I deal with diet conversations that are happening around me, trying to involve me? Like, I don't want to be part of this anymore. What do I do? How perfect that on a day where we might be around a lot of other people, even just a season, with barbecues, pool parties, vacations, all of that, we might need to know how to navigate those conversations better. So I thought the best rewind episode to start with is actually episode 95. Can you believe that? I'm literally releasing episode 190. This was episode 95. So don't worry, you don't have to go all the way back there and find it. I'm going to put it right here for you. And it actually gives my approach of how to respond to dieting conversations. Before we dive in, and I put that episode here for you to listen to, and I just want to acknowledge, like, you may have been listening to that episode when it was released, episode 95. You may have been here for a long time. Thank you. You might find you get something new out of it by listening to it again. That's what I love. I love even listening to my episodes again just because I'm like, what else can I glean from this? What do I need to take away right now where I am on this journey? So whether it's brand new for you, you haven't heard it yet, or you've already heard it, I think you can really just take what you need most. Now, along with the summer series, I want to let you know that I am actually keeping open my VIP list. What in the world is that? All right, really quickly, I'll let you know the VIP list is for those interested in the Intuitive Health Reboot. Who are those women? They're women who are ready to remove food guilt. They want to go out to eat without stress. They don't want to do the dance in the kitchen from the fridge to the pantry feeling so frustrated and overwhelmed with food. That's who the VIP list is for. Go into the show notes, click, get on the VIP list. This is for women who are ready to actually implement intuitive eating, and I have some special things for my VIPs. Be sure to get on that list. It will be open during the summer series and then it will close and go away. You don't want to miss that opportunity for all the amazing things to get started and the opportunity to join me for the Intuitive Health Reboot this fall. All right, for now, let's dive into the first rewind, how to respond to dieting conversations. Hey ladies, welcome to episode 95 of the Health, Life, and More for Women podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer D'Amato. I'm really excited for this podcast episode today because I believe it's really hard to escape diet conversations. They are happening everywhere. I've heard them in line at the grocery store. I hear from my clients all the time how often those conversations are happening at work, in the work lunchroom. Maybe it's on that, girls or moms' night out. Those conversations feel inescapable, that you just cannot avoid them. But you might also feel like you don't know how to respond when those conversations are happening. If you've even just started exploring intuitive eating or exploring the idea that diets don't work, you might find yourself wanting to run when you hear these conversations, like get out of the room. You just might feel stuck on how do I respond? Because you don't want to encourage dieting. You don't want to feed into those beliefs. And diets don't work, but you're not sure how to handle these conversations. So I want to share with you 3 ways that you can respond in these conversations, 3 ways you can handle them in person or online. We know that these conversations are happening on social media all the time. Honestly, they're happening at probably even a higher rate online than they are in person, but they're definitely happening. And you probably can't go through a week without hearing someone talking about their diet or the struggles they're having or how they feel in the body that they have. So sometimes I do better with imagery, so I can kind of see this unfolding. So in your head, even just picturing this conversation, maybe you notice there's a group of women, let's say anywhere from 4 to 6. And someone has started a conversation about dieting, about the diet they tried, the diet that's not working, or they're talking about weight loss. I can't lose weight, or I've lost this weight. I can't keep it off. I need to lose that last 10 pounds. All of those things that have become so commonplace in conversation. So someone has started this. And in general, a lot of people are just contributors. So they're just part of the conversation. They keep it going. They just contribute to the conversation. Because you do not want to be a contributor to the conversation, I'm proposing there are 3 other ways to respond. One is the responder, the other, the interjector, and the last is observer. Now let me, in this scenario, show you how each of those looks. So the conversation's going on and people are contributing. You can take the role of responder. Now, this is different from contributor. That's the person who's just part of the conversation and keeping it moving. You, however, in that role, are just thoughtfully responding when asked something specifically. You are responding. That's generally when something is directed toward you. When you're asked a question about the topic, you respond. Now, of course, you have the option to respond with, I don't want to talk about this, but you may just respond with, an honest response of how you relate to what they're talking about. So responder is an option. But I just want you to see that there's a difference between someone who's contributing, just completely involved in the conversation, and someone who is involved in a passive sense and only responding when asked a specific question. When you take on that responder role, you might even have thoughts of, please don't ask me something. Please don't ask me what I think about this. I know I've had that thought, and usually it's because if you ask me what I think, I'm about to shake up the entire conversation and probably never be invited again. But you do have the option to respond in this responder role. You're listening, you're paying attention, but you only respond when asked specific questions. Now, the second response option is the interjector. Now, you probably know this person. This is the expert, or really the self proclaimed expert, always interjecting their opinion or their thoughts. They just always have something to contribute. They know something about everything. They have been there, done that. They have to continually put in their opinion based on what's being said. Now, you might expect that someone like me, someone in my position, would take the interjector role. I can speak on these topics. I can tell you without a doubt why diets don't work. I can explain to the women in the room that are having the conversation about weight loss or about this product they're trying or about the keto diet, why they're having results at the beginning and why that does not last and why they regain all the weight. I absolutely can interject expert information. I can talk about studies. I can lay it all out. I can give client testimonials. Generally, I don't take this role. It's actually one that seems combative when you come from my vantage point. Because honestly, a lot of these conversations, people are looking for validation. They're looking that other people are right where they are. Other women are struggling with the same things, and that it's okay that I'm not eating. It's okay that I'm restricting. It's okay that I feel like garbage about my body. They're looking for that validation. There's nothing wrong with being an interjector, especially coming from the anti-diet perspective. I know so many clients who have kind of become this diet disruptor in the conversation. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's wonderful. And there are times this is the role I'll take. It's not very often, but I do believe that we can set boundaries for ourselves in the context of these conversations. And sometimes interjecting, hey, did you know that 99% of these diets are failing and that most people gain all the weight back and then some, and they've also slowed down their metabolism? Hey, did you know that our brain needs carbohydrates and our body likes getting energy from them? So cutting them out completely actually has adverse effects, even ones you can't see. And eventually you will also gain that weight back if you start eating carbohydrates again. Did you know? Now, you can do that. There are times I have done that. But I also believe that takes some strength to be the interjector from an anti-diet perspective because it's disrupting the diet conversation. And it's part of the reason I take the last role of observer. I'm often in the observing role. Now, I've admitted on the podcast I'm a total people watcher, and unapologetically, I love watching people, and partly it's because people are the most fascinating things to observe. They really are. I was recently in a situation where the conversation was like thick in the air with talk about dieting and weight loss, and the negative body talk was just overwhelming. I felt we could have painted the walls with how thick it was. My response in the conversation was observer. I think a lot of people believe that being an observer is a passive role, but it's not. When I take the role of observer, I actually feel my brain is probably working harder than if I interject or even respond. It looks like I'm stepping back, and maybe even to the other people in the conversation, it looks like I'm not participating at all. But this is not a passive role. I am actively engaged in what the conversation entails, the words that are being spoken, the body language that's happening. And here's the key for me about being in observer role. I believe we can build compassion from curiosity. I am extremely curious. I am always wondering, where did that come from? What makes you believe that? Why is that your response? And so, in this role of observer, most recently, that's exactly what was happening. I actually felt like my brain could not turn it off. It got me so curious. Why do you believe this about your body? When did that start for you? Why do you think this is going to work for you when nothing else has? Now, this is not coming from a place of judgment. That's never my approach. It really is a compassion builder. When I get curious about these things, when I really am wondering the whole time the root, where these things came from, how they're built, and why they become these beliefs, I feel this overwhelming sense of compassion. In the role of observer, you can also observe your own thoughts. You can really take a step back to what you're thinking about the conversation, about your own body, about your journey. And I really was able to simultaneously take that reflective look as the observer, where I'd been when I lived in that space where diets were the norm and where I am now. And it builds self compassion. It's amazing what can happen in the role of observer. So I hope you're getting this, that I don't believe your only choice in these situations is to just be another contributor. You have the choice to respond if you're specifically asked. You can take that time to be reflective and respond in those moments. You also can be the interjector. You actually can be the complete diet disruptor to the conversation. Or you can take the role of observer. You can get really curious. You might get curious about the topic being discussed, but you also might get really curious about how you feel about it, about your thoughts on what's being said. I know these conversations are hard to walk away from. I mean, physically hard to even walk away from. You might be in a situation where you actually can't even get up and leave. So I hope one of these gives you something to try on. Maybe you want to try on being just the responder. Maybe you want to see what it feels like to be an observer the next time this conversation's going on and you can't just get up and leave. Or maybe you're feeling strong enough to be the interjector. You want to be the one who says, none of that works. And by the way, here's this podcast that explains it even better than I can. Maybe that's where you are. All right, I hope this rewind episode was helpful, gave you something to think about, something to try on. I would love to know how this resonated with you. Feel free to hop over on Instagram, Jennifer underscore intuitive eating life. Hop in the DMs and let me know. Let's plan to meet right back here on the podcast next week for another amazing rewind episode.